security checks on people arriving on private jets. If anyone wants to volunteer their private jet to me, very happy to take part. CO2 emissions, loving them. But basically, people arriving at City Airport, apparently on high-risk flights, are arriving, and they're not facing any security checks. And of course, who knows? Drug runners, people traffickers, and goodness knows what could be getting into the country that way. Government has hit back, the Home Office hit back, saying no, this isn't quite true. They're saying these aren't high-risk flights. There's actually an issue. These actually are low-risk flights. But my thing is, well, I just came in on a low-risk flight from the French Alps. I still go through checks. I don't care whether you get to go in your fancy aircraft and someone brings you champagne in your big comfy seat as opposed to a trolley knocking you, but you don't get to avoid security. I mean, it seems to me to be quite basic rules here. But this was information provided to the independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration, that's David Neal, and this has been seen by the paper, showing that the UK Border Force failed to check the occupants of hundreds of private jets arriving at London City Airport last year. I mean, that is unacceptable. I don't care what risk level they were. Every single person arriving in this country should be checked, same as you and I are every time we get off a Ryanair or a BA or a EasyJet flight.
I think many people will be really surprised to find out that not only are you buying yourself the comfort of travelling on a private jet, but also you can bypass the sorts of checks that presumably everyone would have to go through. Also, this idea that just because you're sort of filthy rich, you therefore must be a totally upstanding citizen. It's curiously naive, I think.
Yes, because we know that about those very, very super rich. I mean, it just seems... But it's so basic. So we're not checking the dinghies, we're not checking the ferry. I mean, it does... Are we even bothering? I mean, we're just not a serious country anymore where we don't bother checking these things.
Especially when you think about the sort of misery that air travel can represent sometimes. Having to queue up, having to put all these things through. Do you take your shoes off? Do you put them on? All these sorts of things, which are kind of to a certain extent, are a ritual, don't actually help that.
Oh, they know. It's the theatre of security.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the most basic checks being...
Who are you? Why are you here?
Private jets isn't happening. So I think it's a story of our times as far as a lot of theatre, but not actually a lot of security.
Absolutely, and always the rich get to bypass everything. One of my things about airports is like you should never be allowed to bypass a queue for any of the legally required things like the security checks and passport checks, because I want the very rich and powerful to have to put up with what we have to put up with, because that's the only way you make it change. If they can bypass it and buy their way through it, it should not be allowed for you to do that. You don't get a special queue. Certainly a queue that apparently you don't have to join at all. Only time I flew without anyone doing that was I hitchhiked to lift on the then Prime Minister Tony Blair's aircraft back from Milan to London. Red carpet, full works, wrong way down one-way streets, outriders. It was awesome. Straight onto the plane. None of this handing your passport nonsense in. Oh, that is the way to travel, folks. Only did it once, though. But anyway...